Back in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, Major League Baseball was a treacherous landscape of juicers and assholes who juiced. There was, however, one man who brought everyday joy, bliss, and euphoria to the ballpark. He wasn't just the first baseman for the Cincinnati Reds. He was the mayor.
Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman.
Hey, welcome to the Press Box Chronicles, the show where a cranky middle-aged sports writer who's seen it all, that is me, takes you behind the scenes and into the stories. I am your host, Jeff Pearlman. And I've talked about this on this show, but back in the day when I was a baseball writer, in the 1990s, 2000s, it was not the most fun landscape to occupy. You would walk into a clubhouse and ball players were just moody and angry and snarly. And you had your Barry Bondses and your Sammy Sosas and your Roger Clemens, and you kind of had to tiptoe around. And in hindsight, I honestly think a lot of it was all the shit they were putting in their veins and taking and popping and pills that just kind of had an effect on them. But it was just a tough time. And if you were me, you were looking for oases, meaning you were looking for guys like Torrey Hunter on the Minnesota Twins, or Mike Sweeney or Joe Randa with the Royals, Glendon Rush with the Mets, or Matt Lawton. You were just looking for people, Jared Williams, who could be nice. And the nicest ball player in the history of baseball, in fact, maybe the nicest human being in the history of humanity, certainly the nicest human being to occupy planet Earth, was a Cincinnati Reds first baseman named Sean Casey. And I want to say, before we get into this, that we actually had a debate about this episode. Because if you look at how the episodes have done so far, people gravitate toward dickheads. The Dave Kingman episode, a lot of views. Barry Bonds episode, John Rocker episode, a lot of views. People like hearing about dicks. And no matter how much they complain about your negativity, and I've had people complain about my negativity in life, people gravitate toward it. So consider this a 180. And today, I really want to explore and appreciate the nicest athlete of all time and my favorite guy I've ever covered in many ways, Sean Casey, the mayor. So I remember back in 1999 when I was a writer at Sports Illustrated, I was sitting at the Cincinnati Reds spring training facility in Florida. And it was the first day of spring training where full rosters reported. And basically it's a room with a bunch of desks and people quietly typing. And you might see Buster Olney over there, and you might see Hal McCoy over there, and there's Peter Gammons, and there's Tom Verducci, and we're all just typing, local writers. And the door opens, and in walks Cincinnati Reds first baseman Sean Casey. And I can tell you from experience, 99.999999999% of the time, when a ball player walks into a press room, he's doing it for one of two reasons. Number one, he thinks it's the bathroom and he's walked into the wrong room. Or number two, he's mad at someone and he wants to chew them out. Well, Sean Casey, who I'd never met, walks into the room. He's the Reds' young first baseman. And he goes writer by writer by writer. And if he knows them, he says, "Hal, man, how's it going? Great to see you. How was your off season? How's your wife?" You would name the wife. "How are your kids?" Name the kids. To me, "Hey, I'm Sean. I play with the Reds. Who are you?" "Oh, I'm Jeff Pearlman, Sports Illustrated." "Oh, man, Sports Illustrated. That's so cool." This was the fucking phenomenon of Sean Casey. As unique a ball player as I've ever covered, as happy a ball player as ever covered, as giving, as gracious, as warm a ball player as I've ever covered. And Sean Casey grew up in Upper St. Clair Township, Pennsylvania, near Pittsburgh. And when he was a kid, very early on in his kid, when he was in junior high school, him and a couple of friends were caught shoplifting baseball cards at a card shop. And ironically, one of the cards they swiped was a young Ken Griffey Jr. card, who would later be his teammate with the Reds. But they're caught shoplifting. And Sean has told this story before that, He could have been spanked. He wasn't spanked. He could have been locked in his room. He wasn't locked in his room. What did his father, Jim, do? His father, Jim, made him pull out a dictionary and look up words like greed, dishonesty, malice, etc. Look up all these negative words, understand what they meant, and understand you don't want that to be you. Sean's parents always taught him to say hello to the parents of his friends. Hello, Mr. So-and-so. Hello, Mrs. So-and-so. How are you doing today? It's great to see you. And what he noticed is the parents would respond in a positive way, and that his parents, Sean Casey's parents, would get calls from the other parents saying, man, your boy is so polite. Your kid is so polite. And throughout his youth, Sean Casey as a young kid was overweight and chunky, and he would get made fun of as a kid. And kids would say, hey, fat ass, and hey, blah, 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 and all these things. And it really bothered him. And his parents just kind of said, just stay positive. Just be kind. Kindness wins over everything else. Kindness wins over everything else. As a senior at Upper St. Clair High School, he hits .541. And he loves baseball. And all he wants to do is play college baseball. But he's ignored by almost everyone. He's not going to be drafted. Nobody really knows who he is. He's not playing at a powerhouse. And the only school to offer him a scholarship is University of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia. And Sean Casey goes to Richmond, and he's immediately a star. The guy can just flat out hit. Early in his career, people would compare him to sort of a Rod Carew or Tony Gwynn. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. Sean Casey was a really, really dependable, steady 300 hitter. More Keith Hernandez. Picture Keith Hernandez in his prime. He was that kind of hitter. He wasn't Tony Gwynn. He wasn't that good, but he was really good. He wound up playing 12 years in the majors. He was a 3-time All-Star, lifetime 302 hitter. So a really good hitter. Think Ken Griffey Sr. He was that kind of hitter. Anyway, he's at Richmond, and he gets to play in the Cape Cod Summer League. In the Cape Cod Summer League, first of all, I want to say, if you're a baseball fan and you just love baseball and you love seeing who's coming up next, go to Cape Cod one summer. It is the best baseball experience you will ever have. The players live with sponsor families. A lot of them have jobs working at the local deli or the local gas station. You can meet the future stars up close. The games are cheap. You can sit out on your lawn in a lawn chair and drink a beer and eat some pasta and just watch a game. It's awesome. And Sean Casey is assigned to the Brewster Whitecaps, one of the teams, in Brewster, as they say, Brewster. And the manager of the team in the summer is a guy named Bill Mosiello. And Bill Mosiello is annoyed when he arrives in Brewster because part of the deal is you generally get to pick your players. So you can call USC and call UCLA and call Duke and call Delaware and say, I would like this guy. Well, Sean Casey had already been promised a spot with Richmond. Bill Mosiello shows up, and he's immediately struck by his first baseman out of Richmond, who he's never heard of, Sean Casey, because Sean Casey talks to everyone. He jogs onto the field, sees the umpire. First time he introduces himself. Second time he says, hey, John, how's it going? The umpire's shocked he remembers his name. The fans, Mary, Bill, Steve, how you guys doing? How's the pasta? How's your food? How's your drink? Blah, blah, blah. And when Sean Casey gets a single, goes to first base, pat the first baseman on the butt. Yo, man, how you doing? You having a great season. Congrats on being here. How's it going? We should go out sometime. When a runner reaches first base, yo, hey, I'm Sean. How are you? Oh, I'm Bill. Where do you play ball? Oh, I play at Tulsa. Oh, Tulsa, blah, blah, blah. And one day, Bill Mosiello, the manager of the Whitecaps, says, what are you doing, man? Are you trying to get votes? Are you trying to be the mayor? And other people hear this. And from that day on, Sean Casey's nickname is the mayor. And later on, Mosiello said, Sean Casey was the best player I ever coached in Cape Cod. I'm so happy he was on that team. He was so real. He was so sincere. He's the greatest kid ever. He's as genuine as can be. And during the summer in Cape Cod, Sean Casey has a day job stocking frozen food at the local store, at the Stop and Shop. And he's basically unpacking crates of bagels and cream cheese and stuff. And he knows everyone at the store. And he's like, yo, you should come out to the game. Come out to the game. I'll leave you tickets. Come to the game. And by the time his summer is done in Brewster, in Cape Cod, he's like the mayor of Brewster. 1995, as a junior at Richmond, he hits .461. He leads Division I in batting. He's named first team All CAA. He's a CAA Player of the Year. He's a second team All American. And toward the end of his senior year, Sean Casey is he's kind of bored in college. He's ready for the next step. College, at the end you can be ready. And he calls his sister and he says, I'm really bored. And she says, why don't you get involved in a charity? And he's like, well, like what? And she's like, just call the nearest cerebral palsy center and see if maybe they need a volunteer. And Sean Casey calls, and the director's like, are you looking for credits? He's like, no, I just want to help. It seems like maybe you guys could use some help. And he winds up being this volunteer. He's about to be drafted. He knows he's going to be drafted at this point, but he's just happy to be a volunteer, helping people out. And there's a kid there named Eric who will not talk. He has cerebral palsy and he refuses to talk. And Sean Casey gravitates directly toward this kid, Eric. And when his time there ends, Sean's parents get a call from Marianne Willis, the director of the local Richmond Cerebral Palsy Center. And she says, you have raised the most incredible boy. We have been trying to get Eric to talk for so long, and Sean did it. And, you come across nowadays so many asshole parents, sports parents. You need to be about sports. You need to be about sports. And Jim and Joan, Sean Casey's parents, weren't that. Like, they wanted him to be great and they wanted him to enjoy it, but they just wanted to create a good man and a person who wanted to give back. Someone who took the young kid, the young boy at the Cerebral Palsy Center, gets him to talk. Anyway, second round, Cleveland Indians draft Sean Casey, 53rd overall pick in the 95 Major League Baseball draft. And Sean Casey has a rapid rise through the minor leagues. And in 1997, he's playing AAA for the Buffalo Bisons. And Casey, again, just like the greatest freaking guy. And Buffalo has a game in Richmond against the Richmond Braves. And Sean Casey reaches out to the Richmond Braves and says, I used to work with the Cerebral Palsy Center. Do you guys think you could reserve some seats for the kids so they can come to a game? And the Richmond Spiders set aside all 20 handicap seats for these kids. And Sean Casey's plan is to play the game and then take all the kids out afterwards. But then he's called up to the major leagues. And this is Sean Casey in a nutshell. Sean Casey's dream is to play Major League Baseball. All he wants is to play Major League Baseball. The Cleveland Indians call. They say, we're making your dream come true. This is it. Welcome to the big leagues. His first thought is, shit, I'm not going to be there when the cerebral palsy kids come to the game. He's just a mensch. And when he reaches the majors, that menschiness explodes 100-fold. So on September 12th, 1997, Sean Casey makes his debut with the Cleveland Indians. And he's 23 years old. He gets his first hit with a bat he borrows from Manny Ramirez. And he's psyched. And he's happy to be an Indian. Unfortunately, the Cleveland Indians have a backlog at first base. You got Jim Tomei. You got a bunch of other guys. There's just no room for him. And on March 30th, 1998, the Indians trade Sean Casey to the Cincinnati Reds for pitcher Dave Burba. It's one of the great, great trades in Reds history. And Sean Casey shows up in Cincinnati with the Reds, and he shakes every reporter's hand, and he goes up to the offices, and he shakes everyone's hand, and he introduces himself. And the thing Sean Casey does, and there's something my dad, the late Stan Pearlman, used to always say, always repeat a person's name when he introduces himself to you, or they introduce themselves. So, hey, I'm Sean Casey. Oh, hey, I'm Susan Smith. Oh, Susan, it's great. He remembered everyone's names. Okay. He joins the Reds. 3 days after being traded, during batting practice before the third game of the season, Damian Jackson, an infielder with the Reds, throws a ball and it accidentally hits Sean Casey in the eye. And Sean Casey falls and it causes an orbital fracture and cuts that require 20 stitches. And it's a gruesome thing to behold and a gruesome thing to watch. And there's a plate with 5 screws is inserted to enable the muscles around the eye to give him normal vision. And at the time, Casey only had 16 days of Major League service. And he's devastated, but he actually tells people, you know what? I got to live my dream of playing in the majors. If this is it for me, I got to play in the majors. That's what counts. He's in the hospital. He's a Good Samaritan hospital in Cincinnati. Jack McKeon is the manager of the Reds. He barely knows Sean Casey. Sean Casey's there. Jack McKeon visits with his wife. He leaves and a reporter says, "So how's Sean doing?" And he goes, "What a beautiful kid. He can't see, but he's glowing with optimism." My wife and I, when we left the room, we left thinking, there's a guy who's something special. And Sean Casey has a 4-hour surgery to repair the orbital fracture. It's a nightmarish experience. It's a very gradual vision, recovery situation. And the guy who is most reluctant and nervous about visiting Sean Casey in a hospital is Damian Jackson, the one who threw the ball, and also, I must say, one of the nicest guy I ever covered in baseball. And finally, Damian Jackson, he works up the nerve to visit his teammate. And baseball is a dog-eat-dog world. It is intense. And you don't know what you're going to get when you visit your teammate in a hospital. He might be furious. He might blame you. So Damian Jackson shows up at the room. And he's really, really nervous. And he said later, "I was just hoping he would forgive me. I can't believe I did this to someone like Sean. Sean's a really good friend." And Damian Jackson opens the door to Sean Casey's room. And Sean Casey's there in his bed. And his one eye is covered in tape and gauze. And Damian pokes his head in cautiously. And Sean Casey looks up. And he goes, "Damian, how you doing? Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. Oh my God, how are you doing?" And Damian Jackson says his eye looked like Mike Tyson punched him in the face. Like, that's how it looked. And Sean Casey gets up and gives him this huge hug and embraces him in a big hug. And Damian Jackson says, that's the kind of person Sean was. Like, I almost ruined him, and he wanted to show me that he was okay. And he was more concerned that I was okay more than anything. And it's kind of amazing. This happens to Sean Casey. And at the time, he finds out about the story of Anthony Molina, who was a ball player at Evansville, a college baseball player who got his eye bashed out in a game. Sean Casey reaches out to him to make sure he's okay. While Sean Casey was waiting for his eye surgery, he called a 10-year-old girl with a rare blood disorder named Caroline Sutherland, who he'd met in a previous children's hospital, just to say hi and make sure she was okay. This was Sean Casey. And Casey finally makes a full recovery, and he comes back with the Cincinnati Reds. In 1998, he's almost confusing to his Reds teammates because, again, it's a grumpy time to be a baseball player. It's steroids and moodiness, and baseball is the guy next to you is trying to take your job. The guy in the minor leagues is trying to take your job. Your manager might be about to tell you you're being traded. Your general manager might be telling you you're about to be released. People who think this is a dream, it is a world of insecurity. It truly is. It's great, but it's insecure. Sean Casey, every guy who comes to first base, "Hey man, how you doing? Hey man, great to see you." Liz Robbins in the Cleveland Plain Dealer wrote a piece about Sean Casey, and I really think she summed it up. She wrote, "Sean Casey knows your name. Diehard fan, maintenance man, sick child, grandmother, Hall of Famer, reporter, or teammate. He sees no distinction. He'll look right at you with his ocean blue eyes and grin. He'll address you as a friend, he'll invite you into the conversation like an honored guest. 30 minutes or even 30 seconds later, he waves goodbye and you feel like you know him. Months later, he will remember your name. Casey is one of the leading hitters in the National League, a left-handed first baseman for the Cincinnati Reds, a future batting champion. Why should he care about you?" And that's the thing. He did. And he always made you feel like it was you. And Casey, in his early days with the Reds, 98, 99, 2000, always the first guy to the clubhouse. Always the last to leave. Never cursed. He would hate this show because I've probably cursed 5 times already. He was a dang it. He was a shucks guy. Every day he would find a quiet place in the clubhouse, usually a bathroom stall, and he'd just read the Bible for a half hour. And they always started with Proverbs. And he went to a banquet in 1999 with a bunch of the Reds executives. And there were probably 1,000 people there. By the end, he knew the names of about 200 people. He literally was like, "All right, it's good to meet you. Hey, great seeing you." Here's the craziest thing of all. I'm not kidding. This is the craziest thing of all. 1999, Sean Casey is getting married to Mandy, who, of course, is a special ed teacher because that's who he marries, a special ed teacher because that is Sean Casey. He invites his teammates. He invites his old friends. He invites coaches. He invites the beat writers for the Reds who cover the team. And if I'm not emphasizing this enough, I have never before or since heard of an active athlete who invited us to his wedding. It is unfathomable. Number one, because you'd be like, they're losers. Number two, you wouldn't want to make your teammates uncomfortable. But he just didn't see a distinction between the worth of a writer and the worth of Ken Griffey Jr. or Adam Dunn. He was that guy. He lived in Mason, Ohio, a small community. There'd be grilling in the backyard. There'd be Sean Casey, the Reds' first baseman. Adam Dunn, one of his teammates, said, it's good that he was able to hit a baseball because otherwise he would be the kid people would take the lunch money from because he was just such of a nice guy. Sports Illustrated did a poll I have in front of me of who's the nicest player in baseball. Sports Illustrated polls 464 guys. 46% named Sean Casey the nicest. The San Diego Union Tribune once surveyed the Padres on which first baseman is the least chattiest. Sean Casey won almost unanimously. Phil Nevin of the Padres said, Casey takes it to a different level. He's like that guy in Seinfeld, the close to your face talker. You almost think he's going to lick your face. There's one moment that is exemplified in this photograph. Sean Casey, Barry Bonds comes to first base. Again, Barry Bonds was the most miserable son of a bitch I've ever written about. And Sean Casey has him laughing. He was just the guy, the mayor of Cincinnati, the most beloved player in Cincinnati, one of the most beloved players in baseball. And then he got traded to Pittsburgh and everything went to crap. On December 8th, 2005, Sean Casey was traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was swapped for a left-handed pitcher, Dave Williams. And Sean Casey stormed into the Reds' front offices, cursed everyone out, punched the general manager, punched half his teammates, mooned everyone, and said, fuck y'all, I'm Sean Casey, I'm out of here. Or he sincerely thanked everyone for their time and their help in his life. He praised the Reds to the media. He said he was excited to go to Pittsburgh. And Lord knows nobody was excited back then to go to Pittsburgh and went to the Pirates. He's just the best guy. And he goes to Pittsburgh and he spends the 06 season in Pittsburgh. He hits .296. He's what Sean Casey is, a solid fielding, good hitting player. And in 2007, he's traded to Detroit, another place nobody really wants to go. And he walks into the Pirates club front offices and he says, you know what, guys, thank you for your time here. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Sean Casey goes to Detroit and he's the same guy he was in Cincinnati, the same guy he was in Pittsburgh. He's charitable. He's chatty. And the Tigers shock baseball by making the World Series. They lose to St. Louis, but Sean Casey hits .432 in the World Series. Great player. And this is it. Dave Dombrowski, the general manager of the Tigers, Jim Leland, the manager of the Tigers, tell Sean Casey he won't be re-signed. And he gets a call from the Detroit newspaper saying, how do you feel about this? And he goes, I love those guys. Those guys are great. Detroit has been great to me. Blah, 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 blah. I just love it. And Casey winds up finishing up his career with the Boston Red Sox. And, he goes on later in life. He's a hitting coach briefly with the New York Yankees. He's hosted his own podcast for years. He's been an MLB analyst for years. And honestly, God, I'm being serious about this. And this is no notes, no anything. Sean Casey is the example, the number one example of why it pays to be nice to people, of why it pays to remember names, why it pays to buy someone a lunch, why it pays to treat people warmly. He is the example because Sean Casey has been working steadily for years since he was done playing in the majors. And guys like Barry Bonds is a perfect example, can barely sniff a job in baseball. He's a Giants special advisor, but that's a nothing job. He can't get the job he wants. He wanted to manage, he wanted to coach. No one will touch him. And the reason people keep turning to Sean Casey is because Sean Casey epitomizes sunshine and kindness and warmth and love. And a guy like Barry Bonds does not. And if you're talking to your kids and you want to give your kids a great example of how to conduct yourself, not just as an athlete, but as a human being, you can do a hell of a lot worse than looking at the life and career and approach of Sean Casey. That is a wrap for this episode of Press Box Chronicles with Jeff Pearlman. Do me a favor, leave a comment below if there are any stories you'd like to hear more about, or if there is a sports figure you're particularly interested in. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok at Jeff Pearlman Author and Bluesky at Jeff Pearlman. Thank you for diving behind the scenes and digging into the story. We'll see you next time on Press Box Chronicles.